One of the other implications of churches being treated as employers for pension law purposes is that there is an obligation on churches to provide certain information to the pension fund trustees. As employers, churches are legally obliged to provide trustees with the information they reasonably require to assess and monitor what is called the employer covenant. That's not the word covenant or the meaning of covenant that we normally use within the Baptist family. It's a word that's used in pension speak about the employer's ability to pay the contributions due from them. As trustees, we are obliged to look into this, and you may recall that in the summer of 2010 we wrote to all churches asking that you provide either a copy of your accounts or that you submit a summary of your accounts, hopefully using the website. About half of churches so far have provided that information, which at one level is a good response. But when, as we will need to do, we talk to the pensions regulator about the outcome of the current valuations, I don't think they will be very impressed with a 50% response rate. So please, if you're among those who have not yet submitted that financial information, could you do so as soon as possible? And again, if you need help with this, do get in touch with the Pensions Office here at Baptist House. In addition to this obligation to provide information under pensions law, you'll probably be aware that as a charity, a church has a legal obligation to provide a copy of its accounts to anyone who requests it, albeit that a charity is allowed to charge for the provision of those accounts. However, we hope that you won't charge us as pension trustees for doing so. Most of what I've had to tell you in this section about pension issues for churches has, I'm afraid, been bad news. However, there is one area where we can offer you some significant help. You may or may not be aware of new government requirements governing what is called auto-enrolment. It has long been the desire of government to get more people into occupational pension schemes, but up to date they've not found that very easy. For example, they introduced the stakeholder pension requirements, which obliged employers with more than 5 people to put in place a stakeholder pension scheme. But of course that hasn't affected most churches who don't have enough employees. There are new auto-enrolment requirements coming into effect starting from 2012, although they will only affect churches from 2014 to 2016 onwards. These requirements are starting with the biggest employers and then gradually working down by size. And for employers with less than 50 people, which I guess includes all of our churches, the new requirements will start sometime between 2014 and 2016 and will be determined according to your tax reference. So we don't yet know when it will apply to each individual church. Under these auto-enrolment requirements, it will be necessary for an employer to bring into a pension scheme all eligible employees earning more than about, in current terms, £7,500 a year. And by eligible, that means, broadly speaking, people between the ages of 18 and state pension age. Now, that for churches may well be an unwelcome development, because an increasing number of churches have, in addition to their minister, a paid administrator, a caretaker, or maybe associated organisations like a preschool and its staff. And this will apply to each of those situations, providing people are earning at least that £7,500 a year. Even if employees are earning less than this, they will still have the option to join a pension arrangement. Employees will be able to opt out of these arrangements, but if they do, then every 3 years employers will be obliged to re-enrol them automatically, even if they choose to opt out again. So as the Baptist pension scheme arrangements are being changed, we thought it was very important to do what we can to help churches by offering an easy option for you to be able to auto-enrol ministers and staff into the relevant sections of the scheme. Within the Baptist pension scheme, as it's planned to rename it from the beginning of 2012, there will be 3 defined contribution sections and 1 defined benefit section. That defined benefit section will cover the benefits already promised up to the end of 2012 to existing members of the fund. The 3 new defined contribution sections are as follows. The first one is for ministers and ministerial students who are remunerated while training in pastorate. The second is for staff, and that covers not just the staff of the union, the associations and the colleges as at present, but also nationally accredited church workers and the staff of churches and churches associated organisations. And the arrangements of those staff and ministers sections will be the same, the only difference being that the definition of pensionable income, as far as ministers are concerned, will include a manse value, but in all other respects, those 2 sections will be the same. We're also planning to add a basic section to the scheme. Any of these people will be eligible, ministers or staff, but this basic section is primarily aimed at those church employees who have not previously been in the scheme at all. So, for example, administrators, caretakers and the like. This basic section of the scheme is intended to be at the minimum level which qualifies for auto-enrolment purposes. That minimum level is defined in different ways according to the definition of pay that's used. In order for the scheme to be administratively practicable, we need to work with a pay definition of salary at the 1st of January each year. And as a result, that leads us to contributions of 5% from members and 4% from employers moving into the members' pension account, with a further 1% from employers to pay for a benefit on death in service and for administrative costs, making a total of 5 from members and 5 from employers, a total of 10 altogether. Let me just recap. As I've said, there are serious pension issues affecting churches, and these should not be ignored. First of all, churches are employers in pensions law, and as a result, they have an open-ended, ongoing liability to contribute. They also have an obligation to provide the trustees with information. There is also the problem of employer debts arising from these cessation events, and we can't get away from that. However, we have sought to mitigate that to some degree through the trustees' current policy of looking to collect deficiency contributions rather than large lump sums. Unfortunately, this problem continues to apply for the time being, but we have put in place mechanisms to help churches manage it through the use of the interim minister and period of grace arrangements. However, those need to be used. Churches need to play their part, otherwise they will be ineffective. The one piece of good news that I've been able to give you as churches is that although there is a problem coming over the horizon in respect of any other staff you have in terms of auto-enrolment, we're doing what we can to make it as easy as possible for you to cope with that. So that is the information you need to be aware of. It's all contained in the pensions bulletin for churches, which has been prepared and circulated. I do need to tell you that these are not matters which are open to consultation. They are matters of fact arising from pensions law. They are not there by the choice of the pension trustees or the union. They are what government regulation and legislation has put upon us. But I hope this has helped you to understand the significance of those issues, and if you do need help, then please approach Philip Putman, the Head of Finance Administration at the Baptist Union, or the Pensions Office, who will do what they can. Thank you.